Morning, Rich Bircumshaw. Good to have
Rich
you with us.
Bircumshaw, 96.1 KISS
Rich
FM.
Bircumshaw, 107.9 The Bear.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Rich Bircumshaw has been described as humble to the core. He's been called a rock star and a true icon. Everyone liked him. He truly was the king. His heart was true gold. These words were spoken at Rich's memorial service after his passing in 2009. With over 500 people in attendance at his memorial, it was more than apparent that Rich was more than a broadcaster. He was a friend to all, and more than anything, he was irreplaceable. Rich Bircumshaw, a broadcaster that loved sports, news, and especially calling high school games. Wendy, the love of his life, whom he met in Casper, said Rich loved to call high school sports. He had many great accomplishments throughout his broadcast career, rising to the top to be the voice of the CSU Rams.
Gartrell off the left side. He's got the 30. He's got the 40. He's in the open at midfield. Gartrell go at the 40, at the 30, 20, at the 10, 5. Gartrell Johnson! Touchdown! Colorado State! Gartrell
But his heart was always with high school kids. Perhaps that's because that is where his broadcast career began.
With the ball is John Uris, tries to bump down the lane, now spins up, has it partially blocked by Bailey, who takes it away. Bailey flips it deep on the floor for Woods. Woods gives it right back and inside for the easy deuce is Nathan Bridges as they lead the 3-on-1 breakout out of backcourt off the block by Bailey, and it's 2-0 Cheyenne East. Here's a steal by Jackson.
In 1974, Rich worked at KLO Radio in Ogden, Utah. In 1979, he joined KVOW AM radio in Riverton, Wyoming, serving as the sports director and did play-by-play for 12 years. From Little League games from the World Series in California to girls and boys high school competitions, he was a true pioneer, broadcasting the first ever girls high school basketball game in Riverton. In 1991, Rich made the move to Casper when he was offered a job at KTWO as news director. Rich did play-by-play while in Casper, as well as many network assignments for the Wyoming Radio Network, doing sideline work. It would be 6 years ago this April that Rich has passed, and I got to tell you,
hard to believe.
Yeah, it really doesn't seem like 6 years. And I guess part of that is the fact that, he's still very much with us.
One of the greatest things about Rich was his sense of humor. He didn't quite know what to think of me, and I had just come off the road from the bands, just done a Guns N' Roses and Metallica tour, and we were a little out of the box, you might say, at that point in time, and I could tell he and I were going to get along just fine when I showed up on my birthday in my birthday suit, and it didn't faze the guy a bit, and we really had a lot of fun together. He was a great news guy, he was a great sports guy, he was a great person. I mean, he was just a good person and a good friend.
Just a quick footnote to that story that Brian just said, that he was completely in the buff, exclusive of a bumper sticker that said, "Wyoming is someplace special."
Yes, strategically placed, by the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no question. You talk about his ability in sports journalism. I used to produce, as you remember, all of the Cowboy football games and basketball games that we would broadcast to our network, which is now owned by Learfield, or run by Learfield. And Rich used to do a lot of the pregame stuff and the countdown stuff. And I would be in his ear, and he had one of those remarkable talents where you would say, "Rich, we've got 45 seconds. Go." And he would nail it every time. He'd come in at 44 and then say, "Good night." And as Brian has mentioned too, he had a tremendous sense of humor. And his repartee was always very good, and that's difficult to do. It's okay to be, to do something as a monologue, okay? But when you got to work with the likes of people like us, you've got to be pretty up on your toes, and he really was.
One other note I do want to make: as much as our friends down south would like to claim Rich Bircumshaw as theirs, he was truly a Wyoming fan through and through. But his dream was to do play-by-play for a big school. He got that opportunity, but he couldn't get rid of Dave Walsh, so that's why he had to go south of the border.
In 1981, 1992, and 1994, Rich was named the Wyoming Sportscaster of the Year. After his time in Wyoming, Rich left to work for Clear Channel in Fort Collins. Then, in 1999, Rich was hired to be the #1 guy as the voice of the CSU Rams.
From 1999 until 2009, Rich Bircumshaw was the voice of the Rams. His legendary calls on the field and court will resonate throughout time. There was always joy in his voice because he truly loved following the Rams.
Rich was one of the best people I've ever known in my 15 years as a football coach here. He was a fiercely loyal person.
Rich was a professional. He realized you had to keep the broadcast on an even keel the best you could, but you couldn't take away the fact that Rich loved CSU.
I would tell you that no one felt better than Rich Bircumshaw when CSU won.
Rich deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, not only for the nature of what his professionalism is in broadcasting, but I think if you really looked at Rich, he cared. He was CSU through and through, and he gave his all.
It didn't matter if Rich was calling high school sports, working the sideline for University of Wyoming, or calling the play-by-play for the CSU Rams. Rich was a broadcaster through and through.
Night, 7 to 8 p.m., Stonehouse Grill.
Rich had a unique personality and wit that permeated throughout his broadcasts and made him unforgettable.
It's evident by listening to the passion in his voice that he loved what he did.
You couldn't spend 1 minute with the guy, let alone 10 years, without learning a lot about how to treat people. And he made it his point to treat everybody like gold. It didn't matter if you were the starting quarterback or if you were a walk-on who was never going to see the field. He treated you all the same, and he treated you like gold.
One of the last calls Rich made was for CSU in the New Mexico Bowl.
Off to Gartrell, off the left side. He's got the 30. He's got the 40. He's in the open at midfield. Gartrell go at the 40, at the 30, 20, at the 10, 5. Gartrell Johnson, touchdown, Colorado State. Gartrell Johnson just went the distance. He just went 77 yards.
What a fantastic gift Rich had for the game. The broadcasting world lost a good one when Rich's voice went silent. He will long be remembered as a great broadcaster from Wyoming and Colorado. But most of all, we remember him as an irreplaceable friend. The Wyoming Association of Broadcasters is pleased to induct Rich Bircumshaw into the Hall of Fame class of 2015.